Hey everybody, welcome back to it. Okay, so lots to talk about. There's all kinds of news with the coronavirus today. It's never ending, right? And I put this picture up here, or this little bit of information, just to go to show you. I'm not here to try and bash any government organization, like to try and it's not my gig, not my gig to do that kind of thing. But when there is problems and situations, they can't be ignored. It's just the way it is. Um, so this here is facts from over time. Who says only believe their facts and avoid misinformation on this virus? So, what are the facts? On January 20th, they confirmed no person-to-person transmission. No, there wasn't. That's what they said. January 30th, they confirmed person-to-person transmission. January 26th, it's not airborne. And they said that in their meeting. No, it's not airborne. It's not transmission like this. We have no reason to believe at this moment in time that it's transmitting like this. February 20th, airborne confirmed. February 15th, hard to catch. February 2nd, more virulent than SARS, confirmed. And these are just a couple, but there's many more. And what they're saying, when they say, watch out for fake media, there's a lot of weird stuff out there. There really is. Like the stuff that's going around with the kids in the high schools and all these weird stories that's fake news. Because they're making up some weird shit like they are. It's just absolutely bananas. It really is. And they want to battle that, right? Because it's causing problems, with social order and things like that. And it's causing people to, I guess, in turn, kind of segregate, like the people of Asian descent in a sense, because, and then they're turning it to a racial thing. They're saying, well, it's racist. That's what the fucking media is saying. I shit you not. They're saying, yeah, no, people are being xenophobic. No, it has nothing to do with health, and wellness and possible contagion. This is now a racial problem. Because that's where they want it to go, right? And there are people that will use this as a platform to further their fucking, if they are a racist person, or if they believe that. I believe everybody's equal. I really do. I don't give a fuck what you are. You're a person. You know what I mean? You are what you are. You've gone through your times and trials, and you came out the other side, and this is who you are today. All right. So whatever. We all need to be treated as such, in my beliefs. But we all have different beliefs, right? That's the problem. That's a big problem right now. Beliefs, politics. It's gonna be fucking. It's gonna be big. It's already happening. It is. It's already happening in the sense that, we got very, very volatile situations all around the world before this even happened. Iran was shooting missiles and everybody was freaking out, and North Korea's doing nuclear weapons testing and all. That's just to name a few that that the mainstream media is rolling with. But there's a lot more under the carpet. I promise you. And the big things, at the stage right now is a financial crisis. We got a huge financial problem on our hands. Not just like everybody's involved with this. Like the virus, this is going to affect us, most people, more than the virus is going to hit us first. People in the West and so on. Apple took $100 billion loss in the last week. 100 billion. BILLION. Yes, billion. And not only Apple, that's just one. The market has lost about $1.6 trillion since this fiasco started. Around, it could be up around 2. But once this here Dow Jones average, I don't know if I can't highlight that. But once this here drops below 2%, it's at well, it's not quite 1% yet, but that's major. That's that's major. I'll promise you. Um, Once it hits 2%, we're going into a recession. There's just no question about it. Factories are going to start shutting down. Everything's going to stop. I'm not kidding. And that's just the money situation. Right? And I'm not. I should go ahead and at least give people a heads up on this, because you're going to hear some things that you might not want to hear, or some people are going to be so, I guess, ignorant to the fact of or to what's going on. They're just not even going to process it, right? And some people are going to be like that, and you got to really dig deep and you really do at this moment, deeper than you ever did, because humanity's on the verge of extinction. And you think I'm kidding? I wish I was kidding. I'm not being an alarmist. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I do have my skeptical side, of course I do, and that's why I'm here today to give you this information. And you can do with it what you want. I can't make choices for you. And I'm not trying to build this up into such a dramatic situation where people are starting to panic, no. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. I promise you, I won't. Because we can't. That's what society's used to doing. Oh, I don't want to deal with that. I can just turn away and walk away and get out of my personal space. I don't have to deal with that. That's kind of like, that's where we are right now. It's like, well, that hurts my feelings. I'm offended by that. I'm sorry. But those society, those pieces of society are about to go out the window really goddamn quick. And we can't avoid it. We must face it head on and be as strong as we ever been, because it's going to happen and there's no stopping it. I'm sorry for that news. I really am. And it's a shock to me. I've been following this since day one. And I'm pretty knowledgeable on the whole subject of the conspiracy theories, of the facts, of the unknowns, of it's just a chaotic web that you couldn't untangle. The average person could never untangle what's going on. Like, you could look at it and say, yeah, well, it's bad. It's probably worse than it is, or some people might just take it exactly at face value, or some people might think it's being actually overdone, right? Oh no, they're talking. It's not even that bad. They're just trying to, get clicks, or trying to, they're trying to make money out of this somehow, or or population control, or something. Regardless of what it is, it's happening and it's coming. The virus is invisible. It's being transmitted person to person when you don't have symptoms. We cannot detect this. Our best technology on the best of days, even with infected people, has a hard time detecting this. Infected people are showing negative on some of these tests, when in fact they are positive, with CT scans showing chest pneumonia, low blood pressure, other like cytokines, low blood T cell counts, all this kind of stuff, right? It's coinciding with it. And we're not getting complete data. But you know what we are getting? We're starting to see major developments happening in South Korea. South Korea's exploded. Iran's and South Korea right now are like the two major hotspots, in Japan. And not only are they hotspots, they got a full-blown outbreak on their hands. They're showing up just like in China, in Iran, with hazmat suits on, like they did in the videos in China, like all the medical personnel showing up to pick up people off the ground that have collapsed randomly. They showed up in hazmat suits in China. Now they're showing up in hazmat suits in Iran. Let's go check some news. Let's go see what's going on here in the world today. You gotta be real with yourself more than you've ever been. And you gotta question more than you have ever been, because this isn't 100% proof. There's no actual facts that we could ever get to prove anything at this point. This is evolving so fast. This virus doesn't give a shit about our data analysis, about our fact gathering, about our scientific studies. It does not sleep. This thing is spreading, and the world doesn't know how bad this is. And I'm here to tell you. And I want you to understand. Make your own assumptions. Okay? So here, this is just lately. So these people that were on the cruise ship, right? They came back. They flew back on a fucking plane. And they weren't tested. They weren't tested. 14 people off the Diamond Cruise Princess flew back to the United States without informing him. The State Department didn't inform him. CDC advised against the traveling of people back to the United States from the cruise ship. They told them no, but they came anyway. So now we got possibly more infected people. Okay, so that's just one story. We'll just scrap that. Is the World Health Organization mishandling the coronavirus response? That is a big question, right? You can't put it all in their laps. Let me tell you something about the World Health Organization. They are only an advisory committee. That is it. They depend on donations from sister countries to fund their projects, and they have a big Ebola outbreak happening right down in Sudan, and there's one, I think, a measles outbreak in South Africa that they've been dealing with for a long time, like over 2 years or something. And they were already strapped low on supplies at this time with dealing. They had, I think there was 200 or it might even been 400 active things. They were like cases they were engaged in, the World Health Organization, at the time that this fell into their laps. They were already strapped. They were already busy. Now this, right? And they're just an advisory committee, remember. They only advise based upon scientific data. Okay? Based upon scientific data. And where are we getting our scientific data from? The majority, over 90% of it, is from China. And we know for sure, with the third time China has switched their diagnosing criteria for this virus. And every time the World Health Organization praised their decision because it was the right thing, but you know what? China is a sovereign country. World Health Organization has nothing, no say at all. If China says, hey, we want to do this, what's your best, how should we approach this? That's what World Health Organization's job is to come in and mediate and say, okay, well, you know what, if you're going to shut your borders down, well, you should do this, and you're going to expect this if this happens, and it's a rollout plan, right? That's what they do. They advise. They don't make rules. They can't give orders. And they base everything they're telling us off the scientific evidence. And the scientific evidence, I'm sorry to say, is drastically wrong. And I don't mean drastically I mean drastically wrong. And not on a good side. Not on a good side. And how do I know all this? Well, just even on a good day, we have 52 laboratories across the world that are currently capable, working at maximum capacity, taking samples from all over the world. Africa doesn't have one, so they have to use Egypt's. So they got to fly their stuff over there or truck it or whatever. They got to get these samples, highly contagious biohazard samples. You know, it's transporting this is just not like sending it in the mail. No. And it's not just that country. There's many countries like this. They have to rely on other testing, outsourcing for testing. So, and it takes about 60 hours to conduct this test because they have to. What a PCR test is a basically what they're doing is they're going to take a little bit of this virus that's in your blood or in a swab, right? Because the best way that they're testing this right now, the most accurate so far, has been the anal swabs, which is kind of scary, but we'll get into that later. It seems to be the most reliable method of detecting this. So now they take this little anal swab and the tiny little bits of virus that are on the tip of the swab or the Q-tip, well, that gets put into like a reagent solution. And what it does is it makes it grow really fast, multiplies it. But not only that, it multiplies everything. The test is so sensitive that when it magnifies the virus, it magnifies everything else, because that's essentially what they're doing. So it's really hard to segregate this, and what they're doing, this test, is only based upon if our bodies are doing a certain reaction to this, an immune response to this. If our bodies aren't having an immune response, even if we have the virus, it's not going to show up. Because they're relying on this target to pinpoint this reaction and detect these tiny little particles, or I guess they'd be like amino acids in our DNA. And they know that if this thing is flashing a certain color, well, it's not going to actually flash a certain color, but it's a I guess it's a trigger or whatever they call it, or a timer. But anyways, it's a signal, right, that they're looking for. They're honing in on this specific signal, and they can only detect it if our body is having an immune response to it. And that's why people are getting better. That's why they're testing negative. And that's why there's still viral load inside the samples when they're testing negative. They don't know what it is. They even said it. But we're not quite sure what that means. We don't know if the virus is dead or alive, but yeah, they're testing negative. I'm not a scientist, but I can see that already. And they're not going to tell us that. But they know that. God damn it, they know that. If I figured that out, they know that. All right, so these tests aren't very accurate on the best of days. And we're waiting for all this information to come in. And not only does it have to go up all the provincial, rural, and like from community level right up the chain, right? And then it goes to the scientists to analyze it. And then we get that information. The numbers aren't wrong, the numbers aren't right, even if they could be collecting the proper data in the best way possible, and everybody being as open as possible. Even if everybody was doing the best they could, it still wouldn't work because of this PCR test. They're saying it's only catching 30 to 50% of the people who are infected. And how do I know that? Let's look at an internal email. And I promise you, this is real. This is on their website. It's not an internal email, but it's false negatives. This is Saturday, December 8th. And this is from Seaxon Global. Here is the link. We'll just click on the link just for a second, just so you know it is legit. This paper is another paper, but you have to sign up. See, key diagnostic test must. Oh, sorry. Missing many coronavirus cases. But you got to sign up for $1 and all that kind of stuff. But I don't got $1. So I am going to get it from another source. But this is the exact same thing. Anyway, even patients, I'll highlight it down here, who have definitely had the disease come back positive 30 to 50% of the time, Wang said. And Wang, who's Wang, Well, he's an infectious disease network or scientist. Um, it's concerning, right? 50 50% is a lot to miss. But these tests are, and let's look at actually, you know what? Just so, because everybody needs to know the science behind it too, right? Um, and that gives you a better understanding as well. I'm just not blowing steam up your ass. So, polymerase chain reaction test is a method widely used by molecular biology to make millions to billions of copies of specific DNA samples, allowing scientists to take a very small sample of DNA and amplify it large enough to study it in detail. So, that's basically what the test does, blah, 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 blah. So, the buffering solution providing a suitable chemical environment for optimal activity and stability. This buffer solution is what I was talking about, that they're having problems with it. So there's a big procedure. Obviously, it's a lot of scientific stuff, but infected disease applications, yes. It's used to find the human immunodeficiency virus because it is a difficult target to find and eradicate. Why am I talking about AIDS or HIV in this? Well, that's if you know, you know. I will get into it later. So, one major limitation of PCR is that prior information to target sequence is necessary in order to generate primers that will be selective. That the primers are going to look for the target, right? So, in order to know what you're looking for, you have to know what you're looking for, right? um, it is. That's basic. And whenever China uploaded the first genetic or gene editing, or sorry, what was it? Oh my goodness, the genome. Wow. They uploaded the genome right away. Remember they were praising China about how fast they uploaded this genome? Well, they were able to generate target primers from these genomes, knowing that, hey, this is what it's going to affect, so this is the target we need to look for. And that's all this test does. It looks for that specific little pinpoint thing reaction that's happening. But if it's not happening, they can't find it. Right? Another limitation of PCR is that even the smallest amount of contaminating DNA can be amplified, resulting in misleading and ambiguous results. And that, sometimes they're doing double testing on these people. But you can't double test people. They can't even test one people. So reagents should be dispensed into single use, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so it's obviously super sensitive, is what I'm getting at. And it's not accurate. It's really not. Give me 5 minutes. I'm going to put a video on for you guys. No, everybody will think I'm crazy. Let's watch how the ACE2 receptor works in our body, because this is how the virus is getting in. We'll do a little bit of math, we'll do a little bit of science, and then we'll get into a little bit of speculation. All right, we'll get some groundwork first, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about here. And then some people just might not get this, but it's for everyone, and I hope. Or it's elementary, so I hope you can get it. I'm going to make it understandable for everyone. So I already seen this. I'm going to let this play for a little bit. I'm going to help my little man and try and find his phone because he's antsy.
And if you're to draw angiotensinogen, it's actually a pretty large molecule, and it has lots and lots of amino acids. And amino acids are these tiny little circles that I'm drawing, and I'm connecting them with little bonds. So you can imagine amino acids being like pearls on a necklace. And In total, angiotensinogen has about 450 plus tensinogen, 450 plus amino acids. So it's a pretty long chain, 452 actually amino acids. So it's a pretty long chain. I'm not going to draw all of it, but you get the idea that it's some crazy long chain like that, and little amino acids strung together all the way through. So this huge protein gets put into the blood vessels by the liver cells, and that starts floating around. And if you were to actually zoom in on the little protein, if you could give it a face, it would maybe look something like this, because even though it's floating around the body and it's going to different parts of the body, it's basically asleep. It's not really active. And I just want you to keep that kind of tucked in the back of your mind, that even though it's there, it's not truly active. It's not really doing a whole lot. So at the same time, you also have the kidney. And the kidney is not idle. The kidney is busy making a hormone of its own. So you know that there's the afferent arteriole. Afferent arteriole is the blood vessel that's headed into the glomerulus. So it's actually headed on its way into the part of the kidney where all of the urine is initially made. So the afferent arteriole, blood is going that way. And lining this afferent arteriole, you remember there are little cells all the way through like this, and these are called juxtaglomerular cells. Juxtaglomerular cells. I'm actually kind of doing a simplified version of it, because this is the part that I really want to focus in on right now. And these juxtaglomerular cells have in them little granules, and they're sometimes even called granular cells, you might recall. And these granular cells sense, either themselves or one of their neighbors help them sense when the blood pressure is low. And these granules get dumped into the bloodstream and actually eventually become, or at the very microscopic level, if you were to look, you can actually see that these are little proteins called renin. And these are proteins that act at a distant site. And so anytime you have proteins that act on cells that are far away, we call those hormones. And so these peptide or protein hormones are basically going to work on cells far away. And so if the renin is floating around in the blood and the angiotensinogen is floating around in the blood, they might meet up, right? So they might meet up in your blood vessel in your arm, or they might meet up in your blood vessel in your leg, or in your abdomen. So they might meet up wherever, right? Somewhere in your body, these two protein hormones are going to meet up. And when they do, a really interesting thing happens. So just keep in mind that angiotensinogen is kind of asleep, and renin meets up with it. So what happens when they meet up? It's pretty much a meeting of two messengers, right? And these two messengers are going to have an interaction, and this is what's going to happen. So you have your angiotensinogen. It looks like this, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to, as I did before, just kind of draw this long tail. And this is about 442 amino acids long, right? Because that's what's left over. And the renin comes in right here. And now you can see why I purposefully kind of drew renin as a little Pac-Man, because what it does is it cuts. It will chop off a huge chunk of that angiotensinogen molecule. And so what you're left with, after renin has gotten through with it, you're left with 10 amino acids, something like that. So you have 10 amino acids there. Then you have, of course, you have that long chain, that is going to be tossed aside, and it will not come into use any further in this story. And so you have that long chain of amino acids, but then you have that chain of 10 amino acids. And this chain of 10
is
called
important right here.
angiotensin 1. And you remember we kind of drew out angiotensinogen as being asleep. And now angiotensin 1 is awake. So this renin, the key thing that it did is kind of activate angiotensin into something that is awake and able to do something of its own. So angiotensin 1. Now this is still a hormone. It's still a messenger. And it continues to float around. So it's still making its way around the body. And at some point, it's going to get into the tiny little capillaries. And I'm drawing them very teeny tiny on purpose here. So tiny little capillaries. And you know capillaries have little endothelial cells. In fact, these capillaries are usually only one cell layer thick, right? So it's really just the endothelium that is sitting there. And this endothelium is really, really interesting because it has an enzyme that sits on its surface. So if you looked at the endothelial cells very carefully under a microscope, you might notice something like this. It's got little enzymes, and I'm trying to draw little diamonds here on the surface. And that's because these enzymes are called angiotensin converting
ACE
enzyme. So that's the name of these enzymes. And actually, you can imagine people don't like to say the whole thing all the time. They try to shorten it to ACE. So if someone says, oh yeah, I've got some endothelium here with ACE in it, you know they're talking about the fact that there's a little enzyme sitting on the edge of the cell, like that. And these little enzymes are just waiting. They're just waiting for angiotensin 1 to pop through. So this is my angiotensin 1. I'm drawing it kind of tiny so that I can actually show it to you. And when it touches that little angiotensin converting enzyme, 2 of the amino acids pop off.
This is big.
2 of them are actually cut off. And so you can see that I went from 10 amino acids to 8 amino acids.
What
and
happens?
It'll happen everywhere. So let's say you've got, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you'll get 2 popped off right there. So basically this angiotensin converting enzyme that sits in the capillaries is going to chop off 2 of the last amino acids and leave you then with just 8 amino acids. So in the blood vessel, then you have just 8 amino acids, and draw that like that. And this 8 amino acid enzyme is called angiotensin 2. So this is angiotensin 2.
It regulates blood
and
pressure.
And again, if you were to draw it kind of
Not
as a human...
Okay, I'm going to skip it a little bit because I already seen it a bunch of times, and I'll get right into it. Angiotensin 1 and 2. Okay, yeah, the 2 is what this specific virus is going after, and we know that now. We know it. It's using the ACE2 receptor to bind and make its communication to get into our cells, and that's major. Okay, that's because what this does is it will regulate all our cardiac functions. Right? And not only that, it constricts angiotensin, like he was saying, angio meaning blood vessel and tension meaning that it can get tension and it can constrict, right? So basically, that's what it means. And it will constrict our capillaries and our blood vessels. And we know from the reports, from the reports that were coming out, the medical journals, we're publishing numerous reports on this stuff, right? And it's really odd how this does its work. Let's just say it's a lot of science. It is a shit ton of science, I promise you. But look, it's got the cardiac function, and it's expressed predominantly in vascular endothelial cells. And why does that matter? Where it's expressed, where it's showing itself. Well, it's showing itself certain places. It can be on the lungs as well, but not as much. angiotensin 2 is not a whole, it's not big on the lungs. It is expressed there, but it seems that this is getting into our system, like infecting our system, predominantly through our bloodstream vessels and through our heart and our kidneys. And we know that it is multi-organ failure that you actually die from this. It's if the pneumonia doesn't get you, which if you're in a hospital setting, they can kind of ventilate you and do stuff like that and help you out. Basically, it just shuts down your organs. It's one by one. This thing just shuts you down. Multi-organ failure is how you die from this, and that's because of this angiotensin enzyme and what it regulates, and where this is actually targeting our system. It's targeting our system in such a way that it can hide from our own immune system. It can. And the science is going to come out. Things are going to, and they know this. They know this. I know this, so they know this. And if they don't, well, send them my channel, because, it's unreal what's going on. And let's go into some more news, okay? So yeah, is the World Health Organization mishandling the coronavirus? And as I said earlier, we can't put all the blame into their lap, because these are highly trained people, right, for these types of situations, obviously, and they rely 100% on scientific data. And where's all our data coming from? Of course, it's all coming out of China. 90% of it, over 90% of it. But we're seeing huge outbreaks now. The first one was the cruise ship. And when I could go back on my videos, and I was actually ecstatic about the cruise ship, as terrible as that might sound for those people involved on there. It's a terrible fucking thing for everybody involved. But what that did for me was it said, hey, people are going to start fucking seeing this now. Because I was watching it before this, and I was like, oh my God, nobody's paying attention. Like, what the F, right? And when I seen the cruise ship coming in, I said, oh, people are going to know now. The world is going to watch now, right? And it barely made coverage until, it started reaching a couple of hundred people infected. And, then there was actually a disease expert on that boat, or on that ship, I guess. He was an infectious disease expert, and he said he was terrified. He came out in a video and said he was absolutely terrified, considering what they were doing, going door to door with a pen and paper, taking temperatures and serving meals, going door to door to door in a small corridor, fucking enclosed place. As soon as you open that cabin door, if somebody's infected, it's going to get out into the hallway. You go to that next door, you're bringing that with you. The more doors you open, the more fucking concentrated this thing's going to get. The more, you know what I mean? It's just, and it shit the bed. That's why the US came and evacuated everybody. The US came out and they did an about face, and all of a sudden they're, breaking the quarantine. Well, just days later and all the weeks before that, well, when people were screaming and everybody was saying, do something, get those people off of there, they said, no, we're going to follow the quarantine order, and this is the best way. And they had experts saying, yeah, no, this is the best way to do it. Oh, yeah, it's a good way. And I'm sitting there fucking pulling my hair out watching this going, oh my fuck. And really, it was, and I'll just tell it straight like it is. And my method of communication might be a little unique, but hopefully you still get the message. So, more and more countries reporting coronavirus cases. Yes, and the biggest ones, South Korea and Iran right now. And we don't know about these other places that don't have testing capabilities. It could be a goddamn wildfire in Africa, and they're dealing with an Ebola outbreak, or if it's, I think it might be measles. They don't have the resources for this, and they are a very cultural community, right? They're in Africa and especially in China and in these places. It's very cultural. There's a lot of interaction. spreading like wildfire, especially Iran. Iran's the same way. Like in South Korea, the big outbreak was from like some kind of worship place, and they're saying, well, there's all kinds of skeptical stories going around about, it's like a secret cult or something. Well, who gives a shit? It's not a cult story. It's a fucking virus, and they're trying to deflect everything. Oh my god, look at these people. They were cult people. Don't look at the virus, for fuck's sakes. Don't look at it. Forget that the virus is even, ripped through this whole place like wildfire, and they still haven't contained the possible super spreader that's in this area, or, maybe a few. We don't know. It's invisible. It's literally invisible, and they're saying, "Hey, we got a handle on it. We're just gonna keep things rolling just like normal." But hey, the cases are spiking up everywhere, and the World Health Organization, everybody's shitting on them. Of course, why wouldn't you? Because they're the ones everybody's looking at, right, for answers. But you know where they're getting their answers and their information to go on is from scientific data coming out of China, because we don't have any other big data to go on. We're taking all the epidemiological reports, which means all the medical reports, all the information, all the, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, all the little things that they mark on these doctors' charts, and it's coming out of China, and it's all fucking wow. You know what I mean? And now they switched their way that they diagnose people again. Whichever way they did this, and the World Health Organization's not gonna bash China on a fucking public world stage in an addressment to the world. You can goddamn guarantee it. So you can get that out of your fucking minds if you're thinking that World Health Organization is gonna do that. No, because what they're trying to do is play nice with China. They have to, in order to, be in communication. If China decides to just up and say fuck it, and just break off communication, which almost they are kind of doing when they sent 3 U.S. reporters packing, gave them 5 days to get out of the country over some bogus story about racism or something. I don't know, but it's massive. It's unfolding. It was always unfolding at an unprecedented event and rate, and I've been always trying to get the word out. But nobody's been listening. Everybody's, it's all, fucking SARS, coronavirus. We've seen this before. It's no worries. Did you ever see Apple take $100 billion loss in 1 week, and the company that produces Apple products in China resort to making face masks? One of the biggest, it is the biggest iPhone producer in the world, and they're no longer making iPhones. They're making face masks. And they're not shipping them anywhere in the world because they can't. They're shipping them to their frontline workers in China and their citizens and whoever. Apple. And that's just one company. That's just one. Not to mention Boeing. Fuck. I can't even rhyme them off. There's so many of them, but there's a lot of big ones. Uber, Alibaba, fucking like we're around $1.4 trillion lost so far around this, and that's only going to increase exponentially as well as the virus. It's not going to take a steady jump or a steady drop now, because it's only going to continue to fall. Let's just go look at the markets really quick again and just see what they're doing. Yep, looks pretty red there, doesn't it? Green. Coca-Cola. People are stocking up on fucking Coke. I don't blame them. Caterpillar. Well, yeah, you're going to need some heavy equipment. Am I wrong? I'm just saying it how it is. Look at this. Apple. 2.2% for Apple is around $35 billion. On top of the, 5% drop they took on last Monday. They took a 5% hit, and it cost them $74 billion. So Apple alone took out, $100 billion loss in 1 week alone. This number here, Dow Jones up here in the corner, 0.78%. If that goes to 2%, which it will, it's just a matter of time. And as I said, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Unless they somehow miraculously stop the virus overnight, and even then it's still going to drop for a while. Because, the whole lag effect about getting the economy and all these factories started back up again, trade happening, it's still going to take time. All right, it's not going to just go up if magically the virus went away tomorrow. No. The virus, when did the virus, let's just go take a timeline look at the virus when it started. Because I know exactly when it started. Well, not exactly, but it should have been, the city should have been closed December 17th, 18th. The city should have been locked down then, but they didn't. They kept it open until the 23rd before they locked it down. Because it was already out of control on the 18th. Not that it should have been locked down. It probably should have been locked down earlier than that, but it was out of control in Wuhan on December 18th. Like, the people were dropping dead in the streets. That's what we were seeing. That's on the 18th. That wasn't recently. Those videos are old. All right. So it started on the 18th of December, but it didn't really start there, right? So that's the first medical case that they noted. Was December 8th was the first one, but then they noted actually December 1st was, there was even an earlier case of a person who had symptoms. So even December 1st, you're not going to catch this the very first time it just pops its head out. You won't. And somebody's not going to go to the hospital for a runny nose. And that's kind of like the symptoms with this. It's just like a little flu symptoms. And it's flu season here in China. And it presents like the flu. So it wasn't until this thing got out of control. So let's just say October. Maybe this thing got out. I would say that. I would. And I would say that's a pretty goddamn good estimate. Because it takes a little while for it to start spreading and catching on, right? It's not going to start spreading viciously right at first. It's going to infect a couple of people, a couple more people. It's going to pass a couple of weeks, a couple more weeks. All right, so timeline is what I'm getting at is, let's say October, November, December, January, February. It's been 4 months, let's say. This thing's been rolling around, and it's only been picking up steam. It hasn't stopped. It's not slowing down. It's not. It's only picking up. So 4 months. If it stopped tomorrow, let's just say it peaked tomorrow. The virus peaked tomorrow and it started burning itself out. Because viruses will do that sometimes. It's just like the flu. It burns itself out after a while. And it stops spreading, but until next year. So 4 months is how long we could expect, at least at this time, before we see our peak. China is 4 months into this. That's where it started, right? The rest of the world, well, we're just getting into it. It's just spreading. So we have at least 4 months to go through with this. At least. Today. So that's a little bit of information. And it's not like it's just going to stop. Like, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't just stop everywhere at the same time. It stops first at the place it started. And then it would roll out. The same as it started where it started, it would stop first where it started. That's how it works. And it hasn't stopped. It's only getting stronger. All right? That's why these big companies are taking big hits. Because they know the factories aren't going to get started back up over there. They're so committed that the factories aren't going to set up over there. Foxconn has retrofitted their whole production line in one of the world's most biggest technology producing plants in China. And they started making face masks for doctors and nurses. So there is the gravity of the situation. So let's just keep going. We'll just keep going. We'll just keep rolling. And I'm not trying to say this to freak anybody out again. Right? I'm telling you how it is. And it's not to freak you out. It's so that you can get prepared. Prepare. Like, what the fuck? We prepare for a goddamn snowstorm or a winter or some kind of weather system coming. Like, Jesus, fuck. I just want people to, at least get a heads up. I got a weird method of delivery, and I'm not a streamer. I'm really not. I did this so that people can have information. And I literally took some drastic steps in my personal life protect my family and my things. When I found that out about this on the 20th of January, I was like, what the hell? On the 24th, I was stocking up. That's how fast I realized that this was something a little different. And if I was wrong, well, hey, I was wrong. I didn't know a whole lot of information back then. There's a lot of what ifs, and there's still a lot of what ifs. But the lot of what ifs are really starting to get, backed up by scientific data now, at least preliminary reports, which brings me into one very huge thing I want to say. The World Health Organization is using non-peer-reviewed papers for their analysis. But then they're telling everybody else who are looking at non-peer-reviewed papers to do so very cautiously. But they're using them in their modeling, in their forecast modeling, their transmission modelings, and So that's, that just begs me, and how do I'm not just saying that. They really, I think it was the last update, not today's update. If they did one today, I'm not sure. They've been kind of slack on them, but they're supposed to be doing a daily update every day, and it's not really happening like that. But yeah, they're using these non-peer-reviewed papers as well, and then they're telling everybody else, well, don't believe those peer-reviewed papers or non-peer-reviewed papers. Anyway, right? So, decoding the genome. That's a big mission. We got some really smart people on this. The best laboratories and equipment we could possibly have, available. And this here, that's something, eh? The city of Wuhan. And I don't know what that guy's doing. He really must need some smokes or liquor or something. So, contact tracing is an imperfect process that relies on people's memories, their candor, and absence of chance encounters with strangers. For, contact tracing means, somebody who's got this, then the CDC or whoever powers that be come in and say, okay, well, who do you know? Where did you go? And who did you talk to? And then they go to all those people, and then they say, who do you know? And where do you go? And who do you talk? Like, do you see how that branches out so fucking fast? After you get, you could probably trace down 20, 30 people. You could probably do that. But you get up to 100 people, and that becomes almost an impossibility. I'm not kidding. It's just statistical. You can't do that legwork. You can't. We don't have the technology even to help with that legwork. Like, we have surveillance cameras, but Jesus Christ, you'd have to sit there and watch surveillance cameras, be like, well, did he touch this person? Did he go here? And that's just taking up time while these other people are possibly going around infecting people. It's uncontainable. So that's my point, I guess, for that. It is uncontainable. So you got to take your own precautions, right? China slams conspiracy theories. Of course they would. They're all conspiracy theories until they're not. So, where I don't even know what else to go into here right now. Yeah. We got, actually, you know what? We did a little bit of science earlier. Let's go into some more science where these non-peer-reviewed papers. Let's just check them out. Because this is the smoking gun. Right there. That's it. And why is that a smoking gun? Let's go read about why. But why? The uncertainty and the debate over the origins of the coronavirus pandemic are growing with each passing day. 1 week after the White House announced and asked scientists to finally investigate whether the COVID-19 was bioengineered, CNBC jumped on the bandwagon and, echoing a similar question by Senator Tom Cotton and, of course, Zero Hedge, said maybe the coronavirus was man-made. All this is taking place as the mainstream media, whose purpose is similar to that of Beijing in minimizing public concerns and panic, even if that means fabricating reality, presses on with the popular theory that the virus emerged from the Hunan seed market, the meat market in Wuhan, recently shows to be very unlikely. While branding everyone who suggests the coronavirus might have originated as a bioweapon developed in a secretive lab as a deranged conspiracy theorist, a propaganda approach first popularized in the 1960s by the CIA to discredit controversial views. Indeed, today, the FT reported that Trevor Blanford of the Fred Hutchinson Center for Cancer Research shot down stories on social media that the coronavirus was created in the Wuhan Institute of Virology or elsewhere. Bradford is, of course, entitled to his own opinion, which was only reinforced by the lack of dissenting views from the scientific community, especially in Ground Zero China. So there's no other scientific evidence that is proving that this is natural. There's actually more supporting evidence to prove that it's not natural. So what would you go if you were in a court of law and, you had, let's say, like 60% more or like maybe 70% more of of course you're going to go with the most evidence, right? Or because there's no scientific evidence yet to come out to refute any of these claims. Nothing. There really hasn't been. It's only confirming these claims, and it is. When this paper first came out, it was published on Twitter by a very renowned person in India, where the paper came out of. Okay, so let's just go take a look at Twitter really quick, just so I'm not going to show you this guy's Twitter page, just so you guys can go do your own research as well, right? So I'm not just so you think I'm not. Just so you think I'm not trying to force my own agenda here. It's not an agenda I'm trying to force. It's information I am trying to force. Okay, so let me think here. Actually, you know what? I don't even know how to use Twitter. I really don't. I only got it for basically that specific reason. Because this paper was shared, and I was seeing it on the internet, and I was like, "What the hell?" So I went and looked at it, and I'm hoping to find his name. I don't know his name. But he's an Indian journalist, and he's a columnist at a big Indian newspaper in India. And he had connections with the universities that did these studies. And he posted the paper directly onto his Twitter account. Hot off the press. Right out of the laboratory, just came off. They just finished it, and like they were so proud of this paper. Right? They were the first ones to do something with it. But then the paper got scrubbed. Everybody started having a panic attack about this thing was being a nuclear weapon. God damn it. How do I find my people? Where's my people? Mentions. I don't know. God damn it. Search Twitter. There he is. And this fella posted it on his Twitter page, and he's a book writer. Got 233,000 followers, and yes, he did post this on his Twitter account, and he was made to take it down. This is a book writer. He's a journalist. Do you think he's just going to take some random paper somebody handed him and fucking post it on his Twitter unless it wasn't at least for sure a scientific research paper? Goddamn right it was. It was. The paper wasn't fake, is what I was trying to get at. This whole thing. So, back to this article. Okay, so now a preprint, of course, it's always got to be preprint if it's not published. And to publish a paper takes a little bit of legwork and takes time. Time isn't something we have right now. We got to go with what we have. And yes, it is an actual scientific study coming from the two most prestigious universities in the world leading in bioinformatics. And these guys pulled it off and gave it to us straight as it was. So, and it's still straight as it is. But now we just have more scientific evidence coming out that proves this is not natural. Okay? That's true. I'm not trying to blow steam up your ass. It's only a matter of time. I bet you by this week, by the end of next Friday, we're gonna have declared a global pandemic. I think it's gonna happen sooner than later because we just got boots on the ground in Wuhan for the first time since the 20th and 21st of January. We just been in there for the first time since then. And it's no coincidence that they're mentioning that, hey, our expert teams are on the ground in there right now in Wuhan. Well, guess what? That's just going to give them a platform to say, well, you know what? They're going to come out with some new information from Wuhan is basically what that's going to entail. And it's going to change the course of events, and they're going to declare a pandemic. Wait. So, back to this here. 2019 coronavirus has caused an epidemic and confirmed laboratory infections. And we aren't even going to say those numbers because we don't know the true numbers. It's just an untold amount of infected and dead. Two descriptions of the virus published on Nature this week indicated that the genome sequences from the patients were almost identical to bat CoV ZC45. And why does that matter? What is the bat CoV ZC45? Well, that's an actual coronavirus they are studying right now in the laboratory there. In China, coincidentally. But anyway, we'll go back into this, and they prove this. It was critical to study where the pathogen came from and how it passed on to human. An article published in The Lancet reported that 27 of 41 infected patients were found to have contact with the seafood market. Only 27 of the 41 had, including patient 0 who never had contact with the market, right? So it probably didn't come from the market. We noted 2 laboratories conducting research on bat coronavirus in Wuhan, one of which was only 280 meters from the seafood market. We briefly examined the histories of the laboratories and processed that the coronavirus probably originated in the laboratory. Our proposal provided an alternative origin to the coronavirus in addition to natural recombination and intermediate hosts. So in addition to natural recombination, well, that's just mutation. That's just mutations that the virus does. Intermediate host, well, that's, like we'd have to have an animal in between to kind of amplify the effects that we're seeing from this. So intermediate host is like another animal that it infected and then it infected us kind of thing. So yeah, so in addition to, right? And it's not proven because you can't 100% prove this unless they come out and say, yeah, unless you could get into the laboratory and take samples directly from there, which I don't think they're letting people do because they haven't let them do it yet. So in summary, somebody was entangled with the evolution of the 2019 nCoV coronavirus, meaning that someone is entangled with the evolution, meaning that somebody was playing with the puzzle pieces on a genetic level. Playing with the puzzle pieces on a genetic level. And the science is there to support it. And now we know for sure for sure that it uses the ACE2 receptor. We know that. And that is the smoking gun. Because it uses this specific receptor. And then you're probably thinking, oh, but wait. The SARS coronavirus, remember the SARS coronavirus in 2002, 2003? It used the ACE2 receptor. So what are you talking about? Well, what I'm talking about is that, yes, this is just a modified version of what accidentally got released in 2002, 2003. Because there's scientists are even saying the same thing. All right, there was a lot of speculation that the SARS got out of the lab in China, but they got a hold of it and they got control of it. But this time, they were doing some work on the SARS virus since 2003, this specific strain that infects these specific receptors. But there's a reason why they're targeting these receptors. Because they're undetectable. It's silent. It's very, very, very silent. And it takes a long time to infect through these receptors. You're infected and you can be infectious, but you could be showing different symptoms, because it's these ACE2 receptors, they're not predominantly in our lungs. They're all through our vascular system. They're through our liver. They're through our heart. They control our cardiac responses. These ACE2 receptors, they control our high blood pressure and our low blood pressure just by the snipping of 2 amino acids. From 8 amino acids to 10 amino acids is the difference between high and low blood pressure. That's it's crazy, right? But there's reasons behind all my blah, 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 mumbling and jumbling. It might not come out in the most scientific and direct way, but I'm trying my best to give you the information. And I'm just figuring it out as I go as well. Right? There's all kinds of new things that are popping up every day. They're just reaffirming this. And I have to get it out. I do. And not just for you guys. Like it's those people in China, they never had a fucking chance. They never had a chance. Their government straight up lied to them, even when it was overblown and people were dying in the streets, dropping. That their government said, no, don't worry, it's all good. Go to work. They didn't have a chance. So it's for them too, right? And I dedicate myself to this for the people who didn't have a heads up, right? And is it going to that moment? Is it going to that place? Well, you just look on the fucking news. Turn on the news. Google something, for fuck's sakes. It is exploding all over the planet. I'm sorry, but it is. And you need to be aware of this. If you're not already, you need to be. And it's not some big conspiracy theories. And it's not some, it doesn't matter if global fucking depopulation's involved. It doesn't matter what the premise is. It doesn't matter. This thing's coming. Regardless of what the fuck it is. We got a scientist and everybody arguing about what it is and what it isn't. And it's still coming straight at us like a fucking freight train. It is. And it's not slowing down. It's getting stronger. So you need to realize this. And I'm going to show you the science that backs this up. We'll try to anyways, as much as we can. There's science on the other side. We got the World Health Organization saying, well, according to our studies, which are not, really complete, we're going to base them on, we're going to make assumptions off these studies that aren't really proven. Well, that's exactly what we're doing right here. And if it's good enough for the goddamn World Health Organization, well, it's good enough for me. Because they're doing the same fucking thing. When they're going and they're looking at research studies and what they're getting out of China, that's just information, that they're just basing conclusions off of that are not really conclusive. Just like this. It's not really conclusive. But hey, we got a lot of supporting evidence that says this is definitely some crazy ass virus that's not out of nature. And why does that matter? Because that gives us the gravity of the situation. That if this thing is designed to kill, possibly, let's say, possibly, we don't know for sure, but if it is, in fact, designed to kill, and it got out, however it got out, you need to know that. This isn't the flu. This isn't something that's just going to go away. This possibly has the potential of infecting animals. We are going to infect the animals. Not the animals are going to infect us. And is that conclusive? No, it's not. But how do I know that? Because of how this communicates with our cells. It does it like it's a fucking linguistic master. It has the communication abilities to communicate with just not our cells, other cells. But we don't know that for sure. But it has the capabilities. The ACE2 receptor is that's a pretty targeted cell. It's a highly specific targeted cell, but it's got co-receptors as well. And it's not a whole lot of bullshit. It might sound like I'm taking too long to get to the point, but you're just going to have to listen. And if you don't want to listen, go do some research of your own. Really? I don't know. It's all it is. I could give a shit about YouTube likes or fucking views or any of that. Actually, I do care about views, because the more people who see this, the more people are going to become, at least, even if they just see it to say, hey, whatever, still be in the back of your mind, it might give you just that little bit of skepticism to keep you a little bit more on guard, right? Because, nothing is for sure, but what we do know for sure is that it's only getting worse. So, back to this article. So, the bats carrying the CoV ZC45 were originally found in Yunnan and Zhejiang province, both of which are more than 900 kilometers away from the seafood market. Bats don't live in the city. Have you ever seen a bat in the city? I've seen them in pigeons. I've seen a lot of cities. I've never seen bats in a city. Maybe in somebody's house up in the attic or something, like in a rural area or something, but no, not in the cities. And they weren't sold in the markets. They really weren't. And multiple sources have confirmed that now. Bats were normally found to live in caves and trees, but this seafood market is in a densely populated district of Wuhan, a metropolitan of 15 million people. The probability was very low for the bats to fly to the market, according to municipal reports and testimonies of 31 residents and 28 visitors. And that's been reiterated a few times. It actually was done. So according to municipal reports, it wasn't there. They didn't sell bats. So was there any other possible way? So these people screened the area around the seafood market and identified 2 laboratories conducting research on bat coronavirus. And one is the Wuhan Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And it's not very far. And there's the hospital. The Union Hospital right down here at the very bottom. That's where all the doctors got infected. That's where it went. That's where it ripped through the hospital like wildfire. This is where the first hospital went down. And this is where they said it originated. But we all know now that the hospital, even the director, has died. The director of the hospital has died from the Wuhan hospital. And the nurse, or the other doctors, there's people dying there all the time. Because they were infected first, right? So they're dropping off now. And it's just highly suspicious that, hey, they're doing bat research here on these specific bats that carry this specific type of coronavirus. But they're doing research, right? So what happened? So the Wuhan Center for Disease Control hosted animals in laboratory research, or for research purposes, one of which was specialized in pathogen collection and identification. In one of their studies, 155 bats, including rhinoceros affinis were captured in Hubei province, and another 450 were captured in Zhejiang province. The expert in collecting was noted in, websites in 2017 and 19, and he was in national newspapers. He was he was kind of like, a scientific hero locally. He described that he was once bitten by a bat and the blood of the bat shot on his skin. He knew it was extreme danger of the infection, so he quarantined himself for 14 days. In another accident, he quarantined himself again because bats peed on him, and he was once thrilled for capturing a bat carrying a tick. I have a video on this guy, this expert, collecting bats. Do you want to see it? I thought you'd never ask, because I need to go for a cigarette. But this video is from the Wuhan Center for Disease Control and Infection. I'm going to show you a video that you've probably never seen before. And just take note that the Wuhan Center for Disease Control is just, it is here. You want to Google it and you want to go do some address research and go ahead, it is there. So, on to the video. Where's the video? Here's the video. Okay. That's not it. I got so much history in here. Where? My little fellow watches stuff here too. Damn. I'm sorry about this. I'm gonna try. Damn it, where'd it go? I have a video recorded of it. I think. I had to record it because I'm sure it was going to disappear at some point in time. Is that it? Nope. My apologies. Damn. I shared it. I know I shared it. What the hell? And it's kind of important because it gives you, it looks at what they're doing here, right? I'm just gonna have to go to my wall and see if it's in there. Wow, is that it? Nope. Oh yeah, they're doing some crazy stuff. I don't know if that was from the swine flu, but they're like, yeah, there's a big pit of people, and this was in Hong Kong, Japan. This guy just fell. I'm not going to show that video, but he did fall. And there's everybody. Nobody's going near him. And why is nobody going near him? Because they all believe he's infected, and he possibly could be. Oh yeah, and here's my latest graph on the coronavirus versus SARS. We can see coronavirus here, and here we have the graph of SARS from 2003. Just if everybody wanted to, graphs are important. Graphs are important. They give us a visual representation of our outlook. God damn it, where's that video? Like, you would think that I could find it, but when I want to find it, no, you can't find it. And now I'm just stuck in it, because I actually want to go for a cigarette. So, actually, okay, wait. Son of a bitch, is it in science stuff? It is. God damn it, it's in science stuff.
A strange menagerie of giant insects.
Just wait.
Amphibians
That's not it. That's just a commercial.
Over the earth,
Oh, that guy's cool as fuck. Alright. From the Wuhan Center of Disease Control and Prevention. This is what they're doing up there.
声音被呼吸吞没，身体和黑暗融合。当我们面对一个看不见的敌人，只有隐藏自己，才可以发现隐藏更深的威胁。我不是医生，却在做治病救人的工作。我不是战士，却守护着一条看不见的国防线。
至于它里面的结果是生理正中间这里，按这个来说应该是成。
我是田俊华，从事病毒样本采集和分类工作，是一个隐形边防线的守卫者。从古至今，病毒就是人类生命的杀手，极强的隐蔽性，让人猝不及防。病毒肉眼不可见，可以通过病媒生物传染人类，而病媒生物在进化过程中与病毒共同依存，可能形成了抑制病毒的某种物质。我们只有发现更多的病媒生物，才能为制作疫苗奠定重要的基础，而这正是我们肩负的使命。跟踪、潜伏、观察。山野是我的办公室，山洞是我的工作台。
这个吃到一个熊的哇，太幸运了啊！
林地是我的实验室。湖北地区有丰富的病毒媒介样本资源，
能够把人咬死的这种皮，危害非常大。真抓了一个。
但一部分病媒生物生活的环境对人类来说非常恶劣，是一个极大考验。在已知的生物中，蝙蝠体内病毒较为丰富，可以找到绝大多数的人类致病病毒，狂犬病毒、SARS、埃博拉病毒。就是蝙蝠栖息的洞穴成我们的主战场。潮湿、黑暗、孤独，蝙蝠的生活环境都在人迹罕至的洞穴里，但只有这样的环境，才能找到最理想的病毒媒介样本。
最安全了。这里的蝙蝠它主要是菊头蝠和蝠翼蝠。
如果说我们的皮肤裸露，很容易接触到蝙蝠的排泄污染的物体，所以说这个风险比较大。要探寻出一个蝙蝠族群和病毒的共生关系，往往在山洞里要住上几天。没有手机信号，没有补给，是真的害怕。怕感染，怕迷路。因为害怕，所以我每一步都很小心。越是害怕，就把每一个细节做好。因为你发现病毒的过程，也是最容易被病毒感染的过程。这是一场没有硝烟的战斗。
你得把它拉开，就是这样，一定要把这个洞封死。出来一个， 所有动物里面唯一能够飞翔的一个动物。要不然它把网扎破了以后，我们来做采集标本，然后做它携带的一个病毒的研究。哦，发现一个蜱虫，这是长腹硬蜱，非常特殊的一种蜱，别的地方抓不到的哇！今天真是收获非常大。
这是一条未知的路，就像蝙蝠生存的洞穴，深不见底。你望着深渊，但是并不知道是什么也在望着自己。
有东西是别人不好替代的。
身在其中，
做任何事情，你只要自己。
我学会了对自己的审视，克服了恐惧。
有时候需要家里的人来支持，习惯了，挺有意思的。
路虽然不好走，但必须学会在迷茫中坚持自己的方向。在过去的10多年里，我们走遍了湖北的每一个角落，探索了几十个没有开发的洞穴，研究病毒媒介300多种。但我却希望这些病毒样本只是作为科研而留存，永远都不会有应用。
I'm just going to pause that right there really quick for a second. And will never be used in real life. Hopefully this is only for research and never to be used in real life, because these are extremely terrible. And what they're saying in this video here is basically what his job is to make things that are bad even worse, to explore these vectors of transmission. And the more vectors that they can explore, the better vaccines they can make in turn. So they take things and they make them worse. They're dual purpose. And dual purpose meaning they can be used for good or they can be used for bad. Dual purpose viruses. They study them to make better vaccines. We'll just continue on. Try not to comment so much.
用的一天，因为人类需要的不仅是疫苗，更是一份来自大战的守护。
I just want to let the credits roll here for a second so you can just look at these credits, and we're going to pause here again for a minute. Nearly 2,000 types of viruses have been discovered by Chinese CDC authorities over the last 12 years. Only 2,284 types of viruses had been discovered worldwide, over 200 years prior to China's discovery. So China has discovered 2,000 viruses, and the rest of the world discovered 284. So it's fair to say that China has a fairly advanced step virus research here, wouldn't you think? I would assume. So, and this isn't to just come out and say, yeah, hey, well, it is what it is. But it's another avenue, and we have to explore it, right? And to have that knowledge gives us a better awareness of what we're dealing with. Because if this is truly something that was manufactured, or developed somehow and got out somehow, we need to know that to take the proper precautions, right? Because this isn't just the flu. This isn't just the flu. It transmits like the flu, yes, but it's much more infectious. Much, much more infectious. We still don't know the transmission methods exactly, but now they're saying it travels in poop. Yep. Because the anal swabs are coming back more often positive than anything else. They're the most reliable method right now. Look, so nice. I had to share it twice. Let's talk about poop. So, the new coronavirus may spread through poop. Yep. I knew that a while ago. I knew that on the cruise ships, and I mentioned because I was saying, like, these people on the cruise ships, like, they just got like a big tank that everybody does their business in. And it's a holding tank, right? Like, it would be just infested with this stuff if people, of course it would. Of course it would. And where's that being vented? Of course it'd be like vented up, but like, that exhausted air from that tank, I'm sure there are disinfectants in there, but probably not disinfectants for, I don't know, maybe this type of virus. I don't know. It begs to differ, right? But or wonder for sure. Previous tests have found that the coronavirus can be present in feces, but it was unclear if the virus would be viable enough to spread through another person. So according to a group of researchers who analyzed this, so they isolated the coronavirus from one patient who had severe pneumonia and examined the virus under an electron microscope. They found that the virus was viable. This means that the stool samples may contaminate hands, food, water, etc. Water. I'm just telling you how it is. This possibly may get into the water systems. It sure seems like some kind of really, really infectious virus, like beyond anything that nature would throw at us. Seriously. Like, I understand enough to understand how evolution works and how, things develop. Even viruses that are scary as shit, like Ebola and all that kind of stuff. It's they still follow a specific route. Like, we kind of understood Ebola and all these things back in the day. Like, we were able to, it's not as transmissible, right? It is transmissible, but this here is even worse. This here virus is even more transmissible than Ebola. It really is. And it's spread far and wide now. It's absolutely everywhere. It really is. And you're thinking to yourself, well, there's only 4 deaths in Iran, and they only got their, they went from 0 to like 300 cases in 3 days, and, now they already got 4 deaths right away in the last, they had 2 deaths one day, and then another 2 deaths, and then, and these are confirmed. One person was found actually in his house dead. He was in his house, and he was dead, and they did the autopsy, and he was confirmed to have it. So how many other people are dead in their houses worldwide somewhere? In China, especially. They boarded up the windows, all the houses, all the fucking, like, they boarded people inside their homes. Inside their homes. You think I'm full of shit? I'm not. That's a vanilla version of what's going on. It's beyond any gravity that you could possibly imagine. And it's coming. So if you can have the time to prepare with this information, alright, I must stress that. This isn't me just trying to freak people out. This is me trying to deliver information in the best way possible and stressing the gravity of the situation and trying to show you, and make your own decisions, of course, right? There's no concrete evidence even coming from the World Health Organization, right? They don't even have solid evidence. We don't have solid evidence. But we are a people. And if we're going to stand by and wait for these people to give us directions, well, I'm sorry, you're going to lose in this one. And there's nothing you can do about it except take the precautionary measures that are going to that you think in your situation that are best going to protect you. And that's you know what I mean? It's the same thing as the World Health Organization. They're just an advisory committee. You know, they just advise on what you could do. They can't give specific information on everybody's certain case, like every country. Like China, they have no say in there. They can only advise China on what to do if China wants to be advised. But China, all they want from the World Health Organization is just to make them look good. They just want them, like even when the Chinese reporters from the CGTN, China's news network out there, they said, you know, they only ask questions like, well, what do you think about China going back to work? And, you know, should, you know, this is a good, they're trying to just, because once he says something like, yeah, you know, China's doing a good job, well, they run that all over the fucking local media there. It's just like, oh, yeah, you know, China's doing a good job. They're doing great on the efforts. They're going to be able to contain this. And they just run with that, right? They just run with it. Instead of going with what's actually happening. And people know what's actually happening. They can see it around them. They're not stupid. Like, you know, they are kind of living in a communist country. And they are kind of a little brainwashed in some sense of the manner. But there's a lot of smart fucking people there as well, right? But it's still a communist country, and they kind of got their citizens kind of on a media rail, and they, you know, they don't deviate from this rail, and it's fucking madness. People over there are so mad at their government, like unless the government comes out and does something drastic, to, you know, combat this. Let's say, I don't know what, but they got to gain the trust of their citizens if they ever expect to even try to get a hold on this. And I think they know now that it's too far gone in China. I really do. I firmly believe that. Unfortunately, you can't stop this now. Not with the way that it's being transmitted. It's being transmitted through the fucking ventilation systems. It's going through sewer pipes. It's like, you know, it's in the feces, and we know that now. It went through a building. Some guy in China retrofitted his ventilation pipe for his sewage. I don't know how or what, but it anyways, it infected people along that line of the pipe that was. So just the vapor of this stuff in your shit will be infectious. If you're sick and you're passing gas, because you can get gastrointestinal illness from this, which is, you know, upset stomachs and diarrhea and all this, you know, and your shit's infective and you got diarrhea and, you know, you're running around and you got a shitty arse everywhere. I'm sorry, but that's just the plain facts about it. And like, let's say you pass gas or fart or something, like, who's to say those particles wouldn't be infectious? If you can smell it, then you could probably think that the virus would be in those particles, right? I know it sounds crazy and funny, but it's only logical. It really is. If it's transporting in feces, and they just, you know, they said that, hey, yes, we have isolated this, and this is legit. This is legit. So they examined it, and they put it under a microscope, and it says this means the stool samples may contaminate hands, food, water, and China CDC wrote in the report, people who use the bathroom and do not wash their hands could spread the virus to others, for instance. So, like, I'm just going to pull one out here and just say, because the last time I remembered some kind of fecal incident on the world stage was the McDonald's, you know, the order screens. You know, when you were pushing, there was I don't know, some kind of investigative thing. They went around and they took samples from all these screens and found shit on every one of them. They did. And I used to love those screens. I used to love going in there to McDonald's, and, you know, you don't have to talk to anybody, and you just put your shit on the screen, and I guess literally put your shit on the screen. But, you know, put your order on the screen, and away you go, right? It's, wow. It really makes me highly cautious over this. I don't trust it one bit. I really don't. Why take the chance? You know, let's try to get a big group of people that can at least live for the apocalypse afterwards. The world would be fucking ours, right? It'd be just like The Walking Dead. It'd be the same thing. Is that far stretched? Hell no. You better brush up on your Walking Dead episodes. And that's not, it is what it is. And how do you deliver this type of information to people without sounding like a complete fucking lunatic? A lot of people are probably going, what the hell? No, it's not that bad. Or then you probably got other people going, oh my God, oh my God. It's going to happen. It's just the way the world is. Don't be one of those people. Find your balance. Be aware and fucking, same as any kind of dangerous situation that you might have to tread into. Right? But except this here we can't see. And people can spread it fairly easily. It makes it so much harder to detect this. It really does. And it has many routes of transmission, which can partially explain its strong transmission and fast transmission speed. China's CDC says. Well, yes, that is a factor. Transmission, the spread of this and how strong it's spreading and how fast it's spreading is a factor. But that's not the only factor. The infectability of the virus itself is a factor. Like, it can spread. A flu can spread. A flu spreads actually pretty readily. You can come in contact with the flu and people who have the flu, and you probably you won't get it as you wash your hands and, you won't. Because it's not that infectious, right? It doesn't have the big communication system like this virus does to communicate with cells to easily infect them more, So that's the way it is too, right? So it has to do with the infectability of this disease, and it is ridiculously infectious. Why do I know that? Because it's using a specific protein, and it's, oh my fuck, it is, and it's, I'm telling you, like, we look over here in this little corner here, and you see these little spiky guys. Well, that's kind of like a coronavirus, in an animated kind of way. But let's go look at I showed this before. I'm not gonna make you watch the whole thing, but it should be in science stuff, I think. It is pretty wild.
Which is a high amount of identity.
So this here is, you know what? I am going to play it. The hell with it. You know what? People who didn't see this, I'll play it for you. Right from the first. How do you like that? Good stuff.
Hi, I'm going to show you some of the molecules coronaviruses use to infect human cells.
We lose viewers whenever the science starts happening, right? Because nobody really understands why.
So I'm particularly interested in Wuhan coronavirus, which is the cause of
then they'd actually have to
the
believe
ongoing
it.
epidemic in China and is spreading around the world right now.
You're going to believe it one way or another,
Let's take
friends.
a look at what a Wuhan coronavirus
I'm just trying to give you a heads
looks
up
like in
beforehand.
electron microscopy. Okay. All right, so I have an image of these black arrows show two of the Wuhan virus, two copies of the Wuhan virus. And you'll see that it's a round particle, and on the outside, it has these spike molecules. There are these little fuzzy guys around the perimeter. On the inside, there's RNA, which encode the instructions of the virus. And the virus's goal is to get inside your human cells in your lung, to dump its RNA into your cells so that your cells can produce more copies of the virus.
All right, just And I'm going to actually give you a heads up here in advance. I'm going to be ending the stream after this video and starting another one up after supper. But yes, it's all vital information. It really is. And he compares this to the new coronavirus. And it's in a way that's, kind of understandable, but not for all. But just notice that there is differences, major differences. And I promise you that if you don't understand the science, just as a primer or as as an introduction, this is not good. This is supporting the data that this is, in fact, something that didn't really evolve on a natural evolutionary curve. That's the best scientific introduction I can give you. Enjoy.
This strategy is not specific to coronaviruses. A lot of familiar viruses use these molecules that form spikes on the surface to invade human cells. Let's take a look at a couple other examples of that. This is an influenza virus example, and in the center is an influenza virus particle, and you see again the spikes, the little fuzziness along the outside. The two other things are just empty membranes. They're there to let researchers see how does the virus actually fuse with these membranes. So the idea is how does the virus fuse with the actual cell, but this is a simpler model of that. And we can see, I can kind of slice through at different depths and at different angles. And if I get the right position, I can see where the virus is contacting this nearby membrane. It's formed this little cusp. It's going to fuse with it and create a hole so that the viral RNA, the genome, can be transferred into a cell. Let's look at one more virus that uses this same strategy of spike molecules on the surface. We'll look at HIV virus. So here are half dozen HIV virus particles. One thing you'll notice difference, we see the membrane around the virus. It's spherical. Again, I'm cutting through it, and I can sort of slice in and out through the virus. And one thing we'll notice is that there are many fewer spikes. That influenza virus and the coronavirus were covered with the spikes. HIV virus is a little bit different. It only has tens of spikes.
Okay, I'm going to stop that right there really quick and make a note of this, because you really have to understand. Remember he said that the coronaviruses are covered in spikes? All right, and there's a reason why the coronaviruses are covered in spikes, because they're not as infectious. So they need more spikes to try and get, increase the chance of infectability, right? Because they rely on these little message signals to be infectious. And if those little message signals aren't really strong, they have to have more spikes to increase, to increase their chance of infectability. HIV, on the other hand, has only a couple of tens of spikes, right? And why is that? It doesn't need a whole bunch of spikes, because just one of those little spikes are very infectious, because it holds a very specific protein called glycoprotein 120, and it is the key to the lock in our cells, and it's very infectious, right? That's why an HIV we know is very infectious. We do, but it doesn't need a whole bunch of spikes. It only needs a couple, because it evolved that way. It only needs a couple of these spikes because it already is very infectious. It doesn't need to have all these other spikes. All right? It's an evolutionary trait. Coronaviruses are covered in the spikes because they're not very infectious. They're not very good at communicating with our cells, so they have to increase their probability by having more spikes to be infectious. So, that is one point to make there with this, is what he's saying. This is scientific analysis. He's not being biased either way. He's just showing us straight out. But if you don't know what to pick out in this, you're not going to know. But he's showing the HIV virus for a reason in this video about the Wuhan coronavirus. And why would he show that? Of all the viruses he could pick, he picks HIV to show. Could it be the HIV-1 glycoprotein that is encapsulating the binding source or the binding centers of this new virus? Because it's using HIV's communication methods on coronavirus, on this specific coronavirus. So this coronavirus can basically speak many languages to many virus or many cells. It's very infectious, in other words. Extremely infectious. And not only does it have the HIV protein that makes it extremely infectious, it's covered in this protein. Absolutely fucking covered in this stuff. So it's ridiculously infectious. Because HIV is covered in uses the same one, and it doesn't need to be covered. It just needs to have a couple of little spikes. Because it is that infectious. So, on with the show.
For instance, here's one, this little stub sticking out. Okay, so we're going to look at these spike molecules. They're used by the virus to recognize your cells and to enter your human cells in your lungs, the coronaviruses in your lungs. We're going to look specifically at the spikes on coronaviruses. Okay, so here I've brought up some electron microscopy of human coronavirus, and it's looking kind of pale. Let me try hiding this and showing it more time. Let me try to make the threshold. Okay, I just changed the threshold of this electron microscopy, the displayed threshold. So this is what one of these spikes looks like on a coronavirus. Okay, it's a human coronavirus. These human coronaviruses, there are 4 different strains that are known. They cause colds. It's a mild illness. They cause about 10% of the common cold, cases of the common cold. The virus would be here at the bottom, and this is the spike sticking up. So this is the top here is the furthest part away from the center of the virus. And this is what the electron microscopy looks. This more detailed view than what we were looking at a second ago was obtained by averaging images from like 10,000 different spike molecules to get a higher level of detail. And from this electron microscopy, we can figure out exactly what the molecular structure of the spike is. So let me show you that molecular structure. Okay, so here's what the spike looks like. And we have 3 proteins here. There's a green one, a blue one, and a red one. And they're actually all the same. They're 3 copies of the same one, and I colored them differently just so that we can clearly see the 3. The spike is symmetrical. Okay, all 3 copies are more or less identical in their shape. The orange part I'm going to talk about a little bit later are sugars covering the spike, sugar molecules. And the really interesting part of this structure is the molecule that the virus uses to get into the cell is actually here. And it's this little tiny thing. It's a sialic acid molecule. And it fits in this little cavity in the spike. The little blue dashed lines, let's see if I give you a better bet. There's some little blue dashed lines. Those are hydrogen bonds. Those are attractive interactions between the sialic acid and the spike. Okay. When the virus encounters one of your cells, and your lung cells and other cells in your body are covered with these sialic acid molecules, it knows it's found your cell because the sialic acid molecule sticks here and triggers the initiation of this reaction, which is going to make the virus invade the cell. All right. So that's a human coronavirus that causes colds, not the Wuhan strain. Let's take a little closer look first at this sialic acid. It's a very small molecule. I just want to briefly show you that. Okay, it's this little speck here, only a few tens of atoms. It's a sugar, it's a monosaccharide. And you might think, and I guess another important fact, influenza virus invades your cells and recognizes your cells by the same molecule, sialic acid molecule. Okay, so that's interesting. You might think that other coronaviruses, well, they're in the same family as this human coronavirus, would also use sialic acid, but surprisingly, that's not the case. And so let me show you what the Wuhan coronavirus is recognizing, and also SARS, a virus that caused an epidemic in 2003, what it recognized. Oops. Okay, so let me try to get it. Where is it? Here it is. So Wuhan virus and SARS virus are recognizing this protein, which is, again, it's a natural protein in your body, like this sialic acid on the surface of the cells. This is called angiotensin converting enzyme 2, ACE2. There's also an angiotensin converting enzyme without the 2. Okay, this one with the 2 lowers your blood pressure. The one without the 2 raises your blood pressure. Both of them work. They have this groove. Let's see if we make this groove bigger. This groove here. Right in here. Both of them work by clipping a small angiotensin molecule. It's 10 amino acids long. The ACE without the 2 clips it from length 10 amino acids, angiotensin from 10 to 8, and that raises your blood pressure. And this ACE2 clips it from 8 to 7, and that lowers your blood pressure. So this is actually a good molecule. Both ACE and ACE2 are interesting targets for a lot of diseases, for high blood pressure, for diabetes, for heart disease. At any rate, we're not going to be able to avoid Wuhan coronavirus by getting rid of this. This is an important, good molecule on the surface of your cells. So how does the virus spike recognize this molecule? Let me bring up, I'd like to show you the Wuhan coronavirus, but we don't have a structure of it. So I'm going to show you SARS, which is the closest thing we have, the spike structure of SARS. Okay. And this is going to look like a lot like that human coronavirus, still the 3 proteins. The sugars aren't here, but they aren't shown here, but in fact there are sugars here. It was just in this particular model they didn't add the sugars. Those sugars are part of all the spikes, the coronavirus spikes. And what they saw when they looked at SARS is that these at the top of the spike, the virus would flip out part of it would make a small motion. Let me show you what that motion looks like if I can. So let's see, here we go. Okay, do you see this little green part at the top? It's called the binding domain. And it can move from a down position where all 3 of them are down and kind of tucked in to an up position. And that up position is the only position that can recognize this ACE2 molecule, the angiotensin converting enzyme 2. When they saw this in electron microscopy, they only would see 1 up at a time. Like the red, blue, and green are identical, but only 1 would be up at a time. They didn't see 2 up, they didn't see 3 up. They just sometimes see 1 up, sometimes see it down. Okay. When it's up, they also saw it bound to this ACE2. And it doesn't bind to just any old place on the structure. It's very specific on where it wants to stick to the ACE2. So let me show you exactly the correct location where it sticks. Okay, so here's the actually from the electron microscopy that shows the ACE2 in brown. Here's the spike, it's flipped up. When it's attached to the ACE2, what they see in the electron microscope is the thing is even more flexible. So let's see. There we go. Let me see if I give you a better angle that shows this motion. Okay, so the thing can swing in and out. And what they observe next is that half of this spike just falls off when the ACE2 attaches. This is in SARS. Okay, what the top half falls off. And here I changed the color scheme on you a little bit. The bottom half I colored light colors, light red and light blue, and this light green kind of looks gray. The each of these 3 copies of the protein is cut at a certain point, and I marked it in red where it's cut. A protease, another molecule, makes a cut right here, and that's totally critical. If the cut's not made, then the virus can't infect. Okay, so each of the 3 ones has a cutting point, and what they observe is this green copy, the top half with the ACE2 floats away, and then the red and the blue, they don't have ACE2, only one of them. These become unstable. They no longer stay attached, and they float away, and we're left with just this bottom light-colored portion of the spike. And this bottom portion in the middle exposes the mechanism which allows it to fuse with the human cell. Okay, is this what's going on in Wuhan coronavirus? So everything I'm showing you is for SARS. We don't have the structures for Wuhan coronavirus, but one thing we can do is we can look at the difference between this SARS virus and Wuhan virus, because we know the chemical structure of the Wuhan virus from its genetic code. So let me color the differences between the two. Let's see, I have a little button I made to do that. There we go. So I colored every part of this green molecule, 1/3 of the spike, orange if it was different between the Wuhan and the SARS virus. So you see, it looks like a lot of orange. It's only about 25%. It's about 75% identical, which is a high amount of identity. When 2 proteins in your body are 75% identical, generally they function nearly exactly the same. Okay, but it would be what we'd really want to look at here is sort of the really important part here where it's attaching to this ACE2 molecule. We see a lot of orange at the interface between the two. And that would make me suspect that this isn't quite right. Wuhan virus. SARS virus and Wuhan virus are probably a bit different here. And in fact, if I only had this evidence, I would probably think that Wuhan virus wasn't even using this ACE2. Okay, because there are so many differences right there. But experiments that were done in the last few weeks already confirmed that Wuhan virus indeed is using ACE2. Okay, but we can expect that our model based on SARS is going to be a little bit off because there are a lot of differences in the critical location where it binds. All right, I want to show you one last thing, and that is what can your immune system do to fend off this virus? So here's another structure, again of SARS, because we don't have the equivalent one for Wuhan. It's the spike, and instead of the red, blue, green coloring, I made it all white because I wanted you to focus on this colored part at the top. Okay, the orange is the differences, all the locations where there are differences between the Wuhan virus and SARS. And at the top, these colored blobs are antibodies. These are things your immune system produces. These are fragment antibodies, like the light green and olive. This is a light chain and heavy chain. An actual antibody in your body is about twice as big as this, but this is a fragment that they use in experiments because it's simpler to work with. So there are 3 antibodies, 3 pairs here. I've colored them differently, again, just to see, to easily distinguish them, but they're the same antibody. It's an antibody called S230. It came from a patient who survived SARS. And you see that it binds at the tip of the spike, right near where the ACE2 would bind. And this is a neutralizing antibody. And by covering the spikes of the SARS virus with the antibody, the ACE2 isn't able to bind, and then the virus isn't able to recognize cells and infect them. Okay, so this is a mechanism your immune system uses to fight off the virus. If it can't get into your cells, then it can't reproduce. All right. One other thing that I told you I was going to come back to was these sugars. And I've colored them pink in this structure, and they're all over the surface. And these sugars are a technique viruses often use to defend themselves against the immune system. Your cells in your body and proteins, molecules on the surface of your cells, like the ACE2, often have sugars coating them. And so your immune system does not generate an attack against sugars generally, because then it would end up attacking your own body. So the spike here has disguised itself with all these sugars. But the problem is, up where it needs to recognize the host cell, it can't put sugars there because they would be in the way. They would prevent the recognition with ACE2. And so that's a vulnerable part. And so that's where we see this antibody bound. Okay. When I showed you earlier that the tips of the spikes, the three copies were folded in, that may be a mechanism to disguise the virus from these antibodies and from the immune system. It keeps them folded in, hidden from view, and only occasionally flips them out to see if there's an ACE2 molecule nearby. All right. Let's see. I think that covers everything I wanted to tell you.
The CRISPR-Cas9 system is a tool for cutting DNA at a specifically targeted location. The technique has already revolutionized gene editing, but scientists are always looking for new possibilities. So what else can CRISPR do? Since being discovered in a bacterial immune system, CRISPR-Cas9 has been adapted into a powerful tool for genomic research. There are two components to the system: a DNA cutting protein called Cas9 and an RNA molecule known as the guide RNA. Bound together, they form a complex that can identify and cut specific sections of DNA. First, Cas9 has to locate and bind to a common sequence in the genome called a PAM. Once the PAM is bound, the guide RNA unwinds part of the double helix. The RNA strand is designed to match and bind a particular sequence in the DNA. Once it's found the correct sequence, Cas9 can cut the DNA. Its two nuclease domains each make a nick, leading to a double-strand break. Although the cell will try to repair this break, the fixing process is error-prone and often inadvertently introduces mutations that disable the gene. This makes CRISPR a great tool for knocking out specific genes. But making double-strand breaks isn't all CRISPR can do. Some researchers are deactivating one or both of Cas9's cutting domains and fusing new enzymes onto the protein. Cas9 can then be used to transport those enzymes to a specific DNA sequence. In one example, Cas9 is fused to an enzyme, a deaminase, which mutates specific DNA bases, eventually replacing cytidine with thymidine. This kind of precise gene editing means you could turn a disease-causing mutation into a healthy version of the gene, or introduce a stop codon at a specific place. But it's not all about gene editing. Several labs have been working on ways to use CRISPR to promote gene transcription. They do this by deactivating Cas9 completely, so it can no longer cut DNA. Instead, transcriptional activators are added to the Cas9 by either fusing them directly or via a string of peptides. Alternatively, the activators can be recruited to the guide RNA instead. These activators recruit the cell's transcription machinery, bringing RNA polymerase and other factors to the target, and increasing transcription of that gene. The same principle applies to gene silencing. A CRAB domain fused to the Cas9 inactivates transcription by recruiting more factors that physically block the gene. A more outside-the-box idea for using CRISPR is to attach fluorescent proteins to the complex, so you can see where particular DNA sequences are found in the cell. This could be useful for things like visualizing the 3D architecture of the genome, or to paint an entire chromosome and follow its position in the nucleus. CRISPR has already changed the face of research, but these new ideas show that what's been achieved so far could just be the tip of the iceberg when it comes to CRISPR's potential. Whatever comes next, it seems the CRISPR revolution is far from over.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, we're going to stop it there. I'm going to end the stream here. I will start one up again. I'm going to have some supper here. I'm going to go back into this, and it's all like prerequisite stuff, you know. If you gives you a visualization about what I'm going to be talking about here. All right, and I don't even know how to explain this stuff because I don't even really fully understand it, and that doesn't discredit my theory, because a lot of people's theory supports this. I'm just trying to give you some science behind why this isn't the way that it is, or actually why this is the way it is, and not something that possibly nature cooked up on her own, because it seems highly implausible, really. So with that being said, that's it for now. Peace.